You want to come over to, can we make room?
You look lonely.
It's just you, yeah. Okay, call to order, roll call, please.
Bryant DeLong. Don Kramer. Anthony Bologna.
Here.
Natalie Scholl. Jason Word. James Godwin.
Here.
Scott Lakin.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, yes, please.
Could I move for the approval of the meeting minutes from Thursday, April 9th?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I don't see it, or do we have any public comments? Or not you yet, I guess. First is gonna, sorry. I think we've got some internet, do we have an internet question? Yes. Okay, what, could we go with those, please?
Okay, the first comment reads, Article 7, Section 7.01, Nonpartisan Elections. Elections for all offices shall be nonpartisan. I request that this be amended to read as follows. Elections for all offices shall require candidates to declare their party affiliation as listed on their existing voter registration. In the absence of any declared affiliation on their voter registration, such declaration must be made on their voter registration with the Missouri Secretary of State voter records.
Thank you. Is there anyone on the commission that has any comment on that topic? I see none, so we'll move on to the next comment.
Okay, the comment reads, I believe the committee owes Rita Richards and Michelle Anya an apology during the committee meeting yesterday. While Debbie Gwynn was allowed to go on and on about her qualifications and provide statements not related to the topic being discussed, Michelle and Rita were immediately shut down. I understand Ms. Gwynn is a former elected PA and possibly given the time she was allowed to talk out of the professional courtesy. Obviously, Ms. Gwynn said what the committee wanted to hear as far as no changes to the Constitution, and the wagons had been circled before any of us even showed up for the meeting. Clay County should be embarrassed that it allows non-elected employees such as the PA to disrespect concerned citizens by not returning emails and are able to continue their job without any ramifications because there's no oversight other than a judge that appointed the person. I was embarrassed that the committee showed such bias against concerned citizens versus a person who was asked to attend, as Ms. Gwynn stated was the reason she attended.
Any comments from the commission on that? I see none. We'll move on to discussion items. So I'll say it again. Are there any comments from any of the commission on the last note? Okay, I see no comments.
Actually, I have a
Oh,
quick,
go
I have a
ahead.
quick comment. And I think we said it last week, but I'll say it again. I appreciate that there were so many people here to talk on the topic and share their thoughts. So it's nice that people are getting involved in the process and talking about that.
Likewise, I
here.
feel the same way, yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to number 5, discussion items, starting with, let's see. Starting with 7. And 7.01, nonpartisan elections. Are there any comments from the commission on that section?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask the county staff, I know Kevin, you've been involved in this as well, but are there provisions for writing candidates in either the primary or the general?
Well, to the extent that there is an election, I think state law would certainly allow for a write-in candidate.
Okay. Since it's a nonpartisan election, and also it talks in the Article 7 about, I believe it's Article 7, about if someone files and no one files in the primary or general, they automatically get in. And, you know, what happens if that person no one files against them either in the primary or in the general, but in the middle of election season, it finds out, they haven't, they've been accused of a felony or, some problem there, and it doesn't seem like there's a provision for an alternative option from a candidate standpoint. And, what if someone in that situation passes away before the general election?
Well, I think if the position was vacated, then, I think there are state laws that would jump in to fill that, and we would handle that pursuant to state law. I think what you're probably more relevantly asking is, do we want to have a provision where we hold an election even if there's only one candidate? That's really what that comes down to. And so the model that we used 5 years ago, we talked to the election board about it. For example, just this past week, I think, Liberty School Board should have had an election, but they didn't because they didn't have any other candidates. And I think the hospital board follows that same model. I think that's an appropriate approach. This is something that Mr. Bologna and I have actually been talking about, that I'm going to dive in a little bit more between now and our next meeting, where we kind of try to finalize a few things. But again, that's the model that exists for school boards, hospital boards, where there's just simply not an election if there's not more candidates than seats. And I think that's an appropriate approach, but certainly if you guys want to have an election, even if there's only one, for the ability to have a write-in, that's certainly something you could have a conversation about.
Well, I just think it sets us up, and it won't happen all the time, but there could be an occurrence that, a change needs to be made after filing closes, and doesn't seem like there's any alternative position. And the other thing is, I want to make sure the voters have as much of a choice as possible.
Sure. I think there are provisions in state law that would allow an empty seat to be filled, and that's probably a better approach than just relying on the multiple different write-ins that might show up. So for example, if a commissioner is running for office and passes away, and they were unopposed, they pass away in, Mel Carnahan, right, passed away in October. I don't know that I personally would love the idea of a 4-year commission term being settled by just write-in. Because who knows which neighborhood's going to get their buddy to all run, and it might only take 30 votes to get someone elected commissioner on a write-in approach. And
Well, it only takes 7 if the legislature appoints it, which sometimes they do.
I know I'm biased, but I think I probably trust the considered judgment of these folks to come up with someone to fill a seat more than merely a write-in situation.
Spoken like a true county employee.
Well,
Ouch.
I'll take it. I mean, I'd hate to see a write-in situation filling a 4-year term.
I just wanted the committee to consider that, because as I read it, it didn't seem like it made provisions for the unexpected.
Yeah. And so at a minimum, I was going to suggest on this topic, Mr. Bologna and I have been kind of talking about that a little bit, and I'm going to work with the election board to make sure that they are completely comfortable with that approach. And if you guys want to make a change, that's certainly fine. But again, we use the model that is often used in local governments when there's not a contested election.
Sorry, completely comfortable with, I guess maybe I don't know the approach you guys were talking about. It's, you said that you two had talked about an approach, and then you said the election board, you're going to talk to them.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to them some more and just make sure that they're comfortable with
the
way it's currently
Oh,
written.
okay.
And then, if there's an appetite to change it, I mean, the change is simple, which is we have an election regardless of whether we have only one person. That's simple, if that's what you want to do. And then, in that case,
Are there write-ins available for the commission spots or the sheriff and prosecutor? Are there write-in?
I take the position that you can write in at any time for any election, anytime. As long as there's an election, I think you can write in for it.
Don't they provide that automatically on the ballots?
I think so.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
Question.
Okay.
Just make sure. Our current, like, kind of speaking to what you're saying, Scott, on our current ballot, we have, I think the sheriff is running unopposed along with Victor. Will they still be on the ballot? Okay. So what I was asking was, currently, we have that situation where you have an office that's running unopposed, but we still have election, because we have several offices who are running opposed.
Yeah.
So that, those two positions will not be on the ballot itself. Is that what you're asking about, if they would be on the?
I think what you're asking about is D, is 703D. If there's one candidate for one office, there shall not be an election for the office, and the candidate will be declared the winner of the election. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're not comfortable with that, if you want the ability to have a
Well, I've been
write-in,
around-
it's just a matter of striking that.
I've been around elected officials that are politically active, trying to keep people off the ballot so they don't have to run, against anybody. And I always comment, I say, yeah, democracy's, a crazy thing, to give voters a choice. But I just want to, I can see a situation where all of a sudden you've got somebody that's filed, there's nobody opposing them in the primary or general, and then they get all kinds of lawsuits filed on sexual harassment, complaints or, something like that, that we might want to give the voters, more options, and one of those would be either a write-in or.
Well, deleting subsection D, I don't have a ton of heartache over. I don't. I mean, it's fine to keep it in. I think it's fine to take it out. Because the reality is, if there's only one commissioner running for office, they are going to win. There's almost no world where I can envision a write-in candidate winning a majority of votes in a county this size.
But at least
When
it's
Missouri
a
City
choice,
has elections, it can happen, right? When you got 11 people voting in an election, which that happens in really small towns, Mosby, for example. But
Well, in 2000, Missouri elected a dead man governor of the state.
I know that. Yep.
And I went through that, and it's kind of ticklish when, you're trying to explain that to voters.
But he was still on the ballot,
I'm
right?
sorry?
He was still on the ballot, and he won.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I mean,
saying.
it was not a write-in situation. In fact, if you remember, the opposing party suggested which I thought was a really smart idea on their part, they suggested people write in Gene Carnahan because that would have nullified votes for Mel. But I don't want to get too deep in the weeds of that. I thought that was a particularly interesting political move, and I thought it was interesting.
No, I remember there were a lot of politics going on
Yeah.
around that. But again, I can see that under certain circumstances, it could become an issue. We'll
Why
let
don't we, I'm
the
sorry.
lawyers and the judges figure it out, I guess.
Scott, let's do this real quick if we can, and we'll continue the conversation. Let's get to D. How about if we get to D, and then we'll talk about it more. So anyone on 701 have comment? No. Anyone on 702 have comment? I don't see any. Anyone on 703 elections, subsection A? Are there any comments on subsection A?
I'm sorry. Anthony, where are you?
Yes, sir. Pardon? 703A.
703, okay. On elections?
Yes, we're on 703 election, which is elections, and we're on subsection A, all elections for office shall be in even-numbered years, with the primary election occurring in August and the general election occurring in November. Any comment? Scott, did you have anything?
No.
No? Okay. Let's move on to B, 703 subsection B. Are there any comments from the commission on that subsection?
And the only thing I'd ask you to at least consider on this one is the last sentence. So we only have a primary if there are at least 3 people running. The way it's written now is if the top 2 move on to November, unless one person gets a majority, in which case they've won. Again, I think that's fine to do. That's how we wrote it. But that is a little different, and you certainly might want to consider whether or not that you just want the top two to move on to November. Just so
Could there be a situation where you have, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I didn't get
No, go ahead,
recognized.
please.
But you have 10, 7 candidates, 8 candidates in the race. And someone gets 50.5 and everyone else gets 49.5. And then you don't have a general, right?
that's exactly what it says.
But the addition of those 6 other candidates, the total of their vote could all go to this, the one that came in second. And then you.
Well, it'd still be a majority. It'd still be
You have
the,
a higher turnout in the general than you do in a primary.
the higher turnout in the general, to me, is the discussion topic. Do you want that general November election, knowing it's going to have more turnout, to always be your safeguard for the election? And again, I'm not strongly, I'm just pointing it out. I'm not advocating for anything
Yeah.
on this one.
No, I'm just thinking ahead, trying to figure out, and I don't have strong feelings either way. I just think it's something we ought to discuss and be aware of before we vote on a total thing. I don't even have a proposal.
I was just going to ask
I
you
want
what
to
you
make
did.
sure, I just want to make sure we're thinking of those kinds of things, because I think that's what we were asked to do when we started.
So Scott, what would you, if you were going to throw out a proposal on that topic, what would your thoughts be?
I'm not an expert on election law, but I do think that the more choices of the voters have, the better. And if someone gets 50.5 or 50.1, they should still have to campaign to win the general. There were other areas and sections in here too that some say general election and some just say election, and I think we need to look for those as well.
Do you think we should have that 50% bid to like 75 or?
I think we ought to maybe eliminate the whole.
Scott, what are your thoughts on having the top 2 go forward, like,
I think they should.
yeah?
And did you say, Kevin, that we might want to think about taking that last sentence
Right.
out
Well,
completely?
to me, I think there are two, in this section, there are only really 2 things that make sense to me to even discuss, and I apologize for saying it that way, it's not how I meant it, is just, do you want to have a November election regardless? And do you want to have an election even if there's
There's no
only one
additional
candidate?
expense or anything, for
I mean, there might be, but it's marginal, given we're always having a larger election in
One-
November.
One additional?
Repeat your question again, Scott?
I don't think I had a question.
Oh, you
I
were saying
was-
one additional
I had an
election.
answer, but not a
I mean,
question.
for the most part, we budget for that, both elections.
Yeah, I don't think there's that additional cost that would be
No.
even,
And more than likely, with the amount of offices that we have run, you probably will, unless every single one of them has 50%.
I
Then
guess
you won't have another
to sum it up, my position is the more democracy, the better. And, I would, if whoever, I think it was Kevin that said one option would be just to take that last sentence out and have the top 2 candidates run. There's been a lot of times where I've seen elections where somebody won the majority in the primary, but they lost the general.
James, what are your thoughts on removing the last sentence?
No thoughts.
Okay, fair enough.
What do you say?
He said no thoughts.
Okay, that's my position too. I mean. But I just think it's something we ought to look at, and I don't think it makes sense. But I do think, again, it creates more democracy rather than less.
Thoughts?
I'm good either way. I kind of think that, more people show up in November, so maybe it's better to let the 2
Let
go
the
up
voters
against it in
decide, yeah.
November. And just remove that last sentence, like Kevin suggested.
Thoughts?
Does it harm anything? That would be my,
Yeah.
Kevin, does it harm anything?
To remove it?
Yes.
Well, again, I want to be clear, I'm not advocating to remove it.
I understand.
I mean, I
You
think,
put it in there originally, didn't you?
I did,
You were
I
on the
did.
last commission.
Again, my North Star on this, I mean, I was looking at documents when I was writing this, that were 50 pages long. My North Star was simple and efficient, something that people can understand. And part of efficient to me meant, let's not have unnecessary elections. Let's not make people run for office if they're the only candidate, or if they've already demonstrated that they've got a majority of support. So, but having said that, I do understand that more people will vote in November than in August. And if your default is you want to make sure that there's an election for each office in November, I think that makes sense, that's fine.
Well, I mean, I just think a few weeks ago, they had a mayoral election in Independence, Missouri. And one of the councilwomen had, in the primary, won the primary I think 60-40, if I'm not mistaken. And she lost the mayoral election just, a month later or whatever, which surprised me. But it was a combination of the other candidates running for mayor. Their supporters supported, I think his name is King, and there was higher turnout for the general than it was for the primary. So I do think it creates more democracy, and the voters have to make those decisions. It gives them the opportunity to make it, but it doesn't cost the county any more to do that. It just creates someone has to justify in the general, like they did in the primary, why they're the best candidate.
Mr. DeLong?
I think I agree with everything Scott has said here, so that's easy. I would strike that last sentence.
Okay.
Based
So
on
do we
a lot
have
of what he
consensus on
said there.
striking the last sentence?
Yeah, I don't disagree with it. I think it is interesting that in a constitution we're writing, because we're telling people,
Not to vote.
hey, we know you don't show up to primaries, so we're going to give you another round here to vote for it in the general. But I'm not, it's just interesting that we, modify a constitution to meet the way that people react in election environment. It's interesting.
Is there any public comment on this topic? Okay, come on up. Oh, thank you.
Okay, Joanne Lawson, Eastern Commissioner at Large. I go by the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. And I just think that the way we have done it and the way that they have set it up this last time has worked beautifully. People have the opportunity to get out and vote. Sadly, a lot of them don't. Last time we had the election, when a number of us ran, nobody filed against us. Now, did that make me happy? Hell yeah, it did. But that doesn't mean that that was right. Nobody was going out there saying, hey, you got to run against her. She can't run unopposed. The first time I ran, I had 4 guys running against me. So, if people are going to be willing to go out and put themselves out there, great, happy to have them do it. If they don't want to, then why do we have to make all kinds of regulations to kind of say, oh, we've got to have something happen in November? If this is the way it happens, leave it alone. I don't see that and cost is another factor. We have to take that into effect. What does it cost?
He said that the cost was
Minimal?
not, I think,
Well-
what was your word? I think it was less than minimal. What was the cost, what was your word for cost?
What did you think the cost was?
I mean, the cost to hold an election?
Yeah.
I mean, the election cost
It's just
is,
going to happen anyway.
If it's gonna happen anyway and we were gonna keep that on,
Yeah. It lessens, does it lessen our responsibility for the number of people? Like, if none of us had an opponent that last time, then was our portion less than it would have been if all of us were running?
I don't think so. I
Oh,
mean,
okay,
yeah.
okay, well then that's
He
good.
kinda commented-
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But bottom line is, I don't think we can change everything this time, and I think there's some key issues that really need to be addressed. Those need to be addressed, but for something like this, people aren't willing to come out and put their name out there, then so be it, you know?
So, Joanne, so I do have a
Yeah.
question for you just on that last comment that you had, because I thought the picture that Scott drew was interesting. So when people are willing to come out and put their name on, I think you said you had 3 or 4 others running against you, and I think Scott's example, it was like 6 people or so, and one gets over 50%, so the remainder get
No, the
less than
way-
50% combined, right?
Well,
So-
no, the way they did it was
Well, so that-
myself and the other top person.
Yeah.
Then went into the November race to run.
But you didn't get 50%.
I didn't get 50%.
Yeah, so my question is, in point B, if you had got 50%, this says it would have been done. It
That's
wouldn't
right,
have.
yeah.
So the discussion here is, hey, even if a person gets 50%, should the top 2, I guess, still move on to the general election?
No, I
Do
don't
you-
think so. Well, your good friend, Scott, won 50% the first time around.
Yeah, I gave him a hard time
And
about
he
that.
just jumped right on in there, so
Yeah.
I think that the more, if people come out, they vote strongly like they did for Scott, and he got over 50% of the vote, why go through the agony again? you
Well,
know?
I think
just
it
don't-
comes back to the point, and that's why I think this picture is so interesting, is 50% in a primary where not as many, we know, not as many people
Yeah.
vote as in. So when there's multiple people in the race, the combination plus additional people, it may not play out like the 50%. So that's why I wondered your thoughts on it.
And I think that's a valid point, except that, you know, that's the problem. People are so apathetic anymore
Yeah.
about so many things, and they don't come out like they should. You see some of these mayoral races, they're really, really, really small amount, thinking, hey, this is the guy that's going to lead your city. Get out and vote, yes or no. But they don't, and I don't think we can force them to. And making all kinds of additional regulations. And two, I don't know how much you have to involve, if any, the election board in any of these changes that we do. Do they have a voice in that at all?
I mean, not necessarily. Obviously, we want to make sure that we are complying with their guardrails.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get their opinion and ask for them to.
No, I didn't
agree.
mean that. I
Yeah.
meant that we don't step on toes and do something
just
illegal.
now.
And you know, just like write-in, anybody, you can write in on any ballot. There's a spot for it, no matter what the race is and no matter which of the races it is, whether it's general or it's the primary. You can write in names, so that takes care of that.
Mr. Chair.
Anyway, I just think
I see the difference.
you can beat a dead horse.
One question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure, no, yes, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Joanne, can I ask you a question? If you ran in a primary and you got 50.1% and 49.9% voted against you, wouldn't you want to have a general and convince more of that 49.9% that you're the best person for that job?
Would you have, when you were running for office?
If that was the rules, I'd,
No, forget the rule. If you had won by 50.1% when you were running,
in the primary,
in the primary, you would have said, praise Jesus, I'm in.
under these rules,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would praise Jesus over an election, but he might have been one of the ones that voted against me.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have a problem with going out in a general election with only 2 candidates instead of 6 or 7, like I said.
If you got them.
It's an opportunity to interface with your constituents. It's an opportunity to, because when you get elected, and you know this, because you've been around a long time, but you're elected to represent all Clay Countyans, not just the 50.1%.
That's exactly correct. You
Okay.
are.
So why would you, I wouldn't mind, going out and having to justify, saying, I'm the best candidate and this is why. And,
I would. And,
Yeah.
and I think those of us who have, you've been through it, it's a nightmare going through it, especially when you cover the entire county. you're out there doing something, and I still am, but you're out there doing something all the time, trying to gain votes and.
Absolutely.
When you have that 50.1% and you want it, then I.
Well, and
you
to,
know,
stay elected, you have to consider the 49.9, right?
Well, of course, and you represent them well.
Yeah.
I had a man that ran against me, and after maybe 4 or 5 months, he came up to me and he said, I just want to tell you you're doing a great job and I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you can win over those other people, whether they're running against you or whether they're just those that voted against you. That's your job. Once you win it, then you go out and represent everybody and do what you can for them. That's just one woman's opinion for what it's worth, and it's probably not much, but, you know.
So Joanne, I have a question. Let's just say you're not an elected official, and you're looking at this. Do you think, and I kind of get Scott's point.
Joanne, do you mind staying by?
I just can't hear.
If-
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Okay.
ahead. Sure.
If you were not an elected official, and I'm looking at this from, I guess, that point of view and Scott's point, if you were looking at a candidate and let's say you didn't make it out to that, 50, to vote on that ahead of time, and it was 49 and 50, would you rather be able to go to the primary knowing, okay, I have a vote now that matters, and it forces those elected officials to work a little bit harder to get people more persuaded to their side, which I think is a good thing as well, because then you have more people backing you. And I'm saying not look at this from an elected official, because I know how hard that is, and I appreciate, everything you do. I'm just trying to say, look at it outside of that for the people, and what that would mean to the people. Just-
Well, here's the bottom line. If you are a person who gives a care about all of this, your Fannie is out there. You've got all the opportunity in the world to go vote early, and if not, then you go vote on the appointed day. If you, and with all of the time you have to vote, if one of those many days you can't get off your dead Fannie and get out there and vote, and someone wins by 50.1%, then that's on you for not getting out there and voting. It's not up to us to make regulations to give everybody a second chance. You had your chance. You should have got out and voted. Now, once that is all over, then it's up to that elected individual to still represent everybody, whether it's 49 or 25%, you have to vote, you have to represent them all fairly. But if you didn't get out and vote, that's your problem anymore. When it was just one day that you could vote, oh man, that was a bear, but because maybe you had to work, you couldn't get out, but not anymore. So they don't want to get out and vote, then that's just tough. So that's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Anything
Or
else?
did you have a question?
Oh, no question. I was just going to speak to the numbers quickly because I pulled them real
Thank
fast
you.
here. From 2022, one of the at-large sheets had 35,000 approximately primary voters and about 74,000 general election voters. So about double. And same on one of the district seats as well, went from 19,000 to about 40,000. So, there's quite the uptick in voters. Just throwing that out there for thought on this as well.
Yeah,
I think that's good information.
I think people make it a
thank you.
priority to do the primary.
There are people that only vote in the general elections.
Yeah.
There's people that only vote in the presidential year elections as well.
Yeah.
And, these, and I'm
Scott,
gonna get in
do you
trouble.
mind turning the light?
I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but I think elected officials in this issue, on this issue, have a conflict of interest, so, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hey, Jay Johnson, Clay County Commissioner. I agree with Commissioner Lawson. I think it's fine how it is. I'm of the opinion if it's not broken, don't try and fix it. It's worked for our last several elections. And keep in mind, when we talk about a primary, we're not talking about an April election. We're talking about an August election for a primary, which is a little bit different than an April election for turnout. But when it comes to, we're a majority rule kind of kind of governance here, and the majority rules. And if the majority says in the primary, hey, we want this person, then the majority should rule. And just because people decide not to vote, you know, we gotta, maybe it's the candidate's responsibility to try and get more people to come out to vote. I think someone mentioned that. The other thing to keep in mind is the cost. Not the cost of the county, but the cost of the candidate. You're running 2 elections, basically. If you have to run in a primary and a general, you're basically running 2 campaigns. And it's expensive. It's very expensive. And it's very difficult to do. And sometimes my thought is, you know, if you got 50% over 50% in the primary, then the voice of the people, they had an opportunity to speak, they spoke, you won. We did that for Scott Wagner when he won, more than 50%. I had 4 or 5 people run against me, just shy of the 50%. So I had to run in the general as well. But it's difficult to run 2 campaigns like that. And particularly, remember, these are for county-wide offices. It's a lot different when you're running for a whole county than it is if you're running for a section within the county, whether it's whether it's a state rep or a city council person or something like that. You got to cover a lot more territory, costs a lot more money. It's a lot more difficult to do. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents.
Any questions for?
Questions?
No, thank you. Did you have something else? No? Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
For Kevin. If someone does not have a general because they got over 50% in the primary, are they restricted from spending money in the general on anyone's campaign or on behalf of another candidate trying to get a majority?
Not
of the
by this
7?
document, but that's a campaign finance question that I'm not qualified to answer. This document doesn't touch that. The county wouldn't have an opinion on that, but that's a campaign finance issue.
Now, and it's later in, we'll get to it at the very end where it gives the language that was on the ballot. I assume that you wrote it saying this does this, you know, basically summing up the Constitution and what it does. And in there it said it addresses campaign finance.
Correct.
Is that not true?
No, campaign finance is included in
On the
section.
very last page
Point-
before.
Point 702 is campaign finance, is contribution limits. We talked about that just a second ago.
Yeah, it's coming, but here it says, requires this, adoption of this county constitution requires campaign contribution limits.
That's in section 7.02.
Okay, so we're getting to it, right?
We've already done that.
Talked about it.
Okay, I can see where someone doesn't have a general. So they have fundraisers and they raise money and
They can do that
build a war
regardless.
chest and
Whether-
distribute it to who they want to get elected.
I think somebody in an off-year election cycle can raise in that same election cycle is my belief. I mean, if you're in office, campaign finance regulates how and when you can raise money. And it doesn't matter if you have an opponent, and that's already the law, in my opinion.
Well, but if you're a sitting commissioner and there's realtors and developers that have issues before the commission, you know, they'll gladly write a campaign check to somebody that didn't even have a general election.
Correct. And
Okay.
and the same thing is with state senators, state reps, governor, lieutenant governor. I mean, I think that is statewide a true statement.
Yeah. And I know I'm not trying to, I never had a campaign fundraiser during the legislative session. Never.
Yeah. But you were allowed.
I wasn't
Yeah.
prohibited, and obviously during veto session, a lot of the state reps and state senators don't agree with that down in Jefferson City, because you go down there during veto session, and most of what you're doing is going to campaign fundraisers. I just see there's issues there that we have to be aware of and make sure that if we need to address them, we address them.
All right, I want to get back to 703B then. We're talking about that last sentence. Thoughts?
Hasn't changed.
So do you still want to make the change?
I'm still fine with striking it, yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine with letting it Taking it off.
Taking it off? Scott?
I want it out.
Leave it for me.
Pardon?
Leave it for me. It's fine as
Okay.
it is.
Well, so I think we have consensus then to take it out.
Okay, well, and again, all these are just going to be first draft when we put
Sure.
it together. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Scott, I mean, before we move on, you had mentioned, and James had asked about, I think just so that it's out, the comments about the election board,
Yes.
and when you had referenced our conversation. Would you explain what that's in reference to, just so that it's out and
Sure,
everybody
sure.
understands?
Yeah, so the question was, has been at least posed by the election board, whether or not we should have unopposed elections, or elections, if you only have one person, whether that person gets to take the office. So that goes to subsection D.
Right.
I think, not necessarily, I mean, I guess it could go to B as well.
No, I understood it as
Yeah,
D.
but that's been
uh,
that was a question that was raised between Mr. Bologna and I. I'm going to work on that a little bit more because that isn't in keeping with what I was told 6 years ago, but I will
Okay.
certainly revisit it with the election board.
Yeah,
Does
thanks.
that clarify that? I just didn't want anything to seem like, well, what were they talking about? Or
No, I
something,
was just
you know?
trying to track the conversation, and it
Yep.
was like his question, and then it was like, well, Mr. Bologna and I was like, well, what's this question?
And that's why I wanted,
Okay,
let's,
yeah.
so that's, I just wanted everybody to understand that, so. Okay. Then let's move on to C and open it up to the commission for comment.
That's 7C?
Yes, sir, we are on
Can I ask a quick question, just clarification?
703C.
On B, Kevin?
On what?
On B,
On 7B, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
703B.
I'm sorry, I'll wait. I'm
Wait.
thinking of 8. I'm thinking of 8.
Jumping ahead.
You're jumping ahead?
I am.
Okay, all right, so.
Don't tell anybody.
Nope, that's a secret. 703, let's move to 703 subsection C and open it up to the commission for discussion. Anything on this side of the room? Anything on the north, the lone guy, the North Pole over there? Okay, so I don't see any. Any public comment on C? I don't see any. We'll move to D.
I would agree with the comments earlier on removing D,
On
As well.
removing D.
right? That was
One
to
candidate for
make
one
sure
office, there's
everyone's name
no-
is on the ballot, even if they're running. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So you want to remove it?
I would,
Other comment?
So,
I don't know.
yeah, I guess I have a comment. If we just remove D, then what drives them automatically being on the ballot? It seems odd that in B and C, we're providing, clear instruction. If there's this many people and this happens, then this will happen. And we're doing like, whatever, 3, 2, 1. But if we just remove D, then there's nothing that states what happens when there's one candidate. Is there something else that?
I guess I don't care how
Well,
that's worded.
yeah.
It's something to the effect of,
Here's
How
what
we
I would
get-
suggest if you're talking about. So right now it says, if there are 2 or 3 candidates, if there are 3 candidates, there's a primary. The 2 top winners, the 2 top move on to November, unless somebody gets a majority, in which case that person's the victor. That's 3 or more candidates. If there are only 2 candidates, there's only a general election in November. Winner is winner. If there is 1 candidate, there is no election anywhere. And that's what D is. And so if we take out D, I think it's, if there are 3 candidates, and we make the change to B that we talked about, if there are 3 candidates, top 2 move on regardless. If there are 2 candidates,
Primary.
I would say no primary, and they just go to general. And 1 candidate, no primary, and just that person appears on the general. That's, if you remove D.
So you would add new wording? You wouldn't just remove
I would,
D?
I would add
is
wording that makes it clear that they're not on the August primary. Yeah, I'd make some language change there. And that one's, I mean, to be honest, I think D is much less consequential than B as far as a change. I mean, if you're going to win. I've been on 2 election cycles where I was the only candidate, and I didn't even campaign. and it got 99% of the vote. I mean, it's, that one, I don't think D is all that consequential.
Bragger.
In or out. What's that?
I said bragger.
Well, I mean, everybody that does that, that's what happened. But B, I think B is certainly a little more consequential because it does require a contested race.
So what do you guys want to do on D?
On B?
D.
D.
D, I don't, is it a proposal? Is that too strong? Are you proposing, you're proposing to get rid of D?
I was agreeing with Scott from earlier. That's,
No.
not what we talked about earlier was so that they have the ability to have the write-in candidates as well,
Yeah,
because there's still an election being held
it's been verified by
for the seat.
elected officials that there is writing.
Which I also agree with you, it's a very slim likelihood, and it's unlikely to happen, but to me, it's also a very long period between initial filing. Because, right, no one else can file for the seat after,
That's right.
I don't know,
Well,
what
it
is that date?
closes.
March, April, something.
But then you were saying
And then
that
that's it until November, if that's the only person. And a lot can go, sorry, I could have grabbed that conversation. Go on. Now I've got to disturb my own flow. No, I'm kidding. No, I just feel like it's a long period and a lot of things can also happen. Just want to give the voters an additional flexibility. Although likelihood is
It is very unlikely.
slim to
Kevin,
close
but
to
if we
zero.
take that out,
One time it
your
is,
comments
yeah.
earlier
It's
were
up
that then it opens up to
Because there's like a proper filing procedure.
there not
for
being a
all these
candidate
too.
for some random reason, and there
Well-
being only a write-in that would fill the position, correct?
Well, write-ins, I think, are governed by state law. And I don't think we have to put anything in about write-ins. Essentially the concept in D, if you want to change it, I would say we will have, if there's only one candidate for one office, that candidate shall stand for election in November at the general, and that's it. That's what it would change to.
All right. Is that what y'all want to, is that what you're all comfortable with, or wanting to do?
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that sounds good.
North Pole?
I say just leave it. It's already there. It's not broken.
Leave it the way it is?
Yeah.
Well,
You know, with him being the only one on the North Pole, he has a lot of power today.
yeah,
He really does.
makes sense. Well,
He's making all the decisions over there.
I think that does form a consensus, though, so.
Okay.
My read of the room. All right. I don't remember before we said that. Did we open that to public? Did I open that to public? Is there public comment on D? Did we already?
She spoke too.
Yeah, okay, so we're, all right, so then let's move on to E. All elections authorized by this Constitution shall be paid for by Clay County. Open to discussion of the commission. I don't,
Who else can pay for it?
that's a good question.
Can we assign it to someone?
Can Jackson County?
Yeah,
take
that's
it
what we're
on?
gonna put in here. Platte County should pay for it, I think.
Any public comments on E? No, so we'll move on to, all right, so we're on the next section, Article 8 on the discussion item.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I had questions, Kevin. Who approves the language when it goes on the ballot? Does the election board approve the language?
Either the
We don't
election
have a
board or the
Secretary of
Secretary of
State in Clay
State.
County, so,
yeah.
I'm sorry?
I think it's probably, I mean, most of the time, when there's a statewide initiative, it's always the Secretary of State.
Okay. I just, would- you know, we have a statewide ballot measures, it goes to the Secretary of State, and usually the judge in Cole County. But we don't have Secretary of States, you know, at the county level, so I just don't know who,
It looks to
Approves
me
the
like
final
if you look
language.
at subsection C, it's the county election board, I think.
is it?
That's what it looks like.
Okay. And then the other question I had, it mentions tax rates, and I think it's 8.02. What the county does, or the petition, initiative, and referendum, they don't have the power to change or.
Here,
Right.
let's
yeah.
let's do this. 80, so we're in section 8. I'm sorry, Scott, to interrupt you, but
No,
I
that's
want
all
to
right.
try to keep this orderly. And we're on Article 8, initiative, referendum, and recall. The first section up is 801, 8.01 authority. Do we have any comments from the commission on sections 8.01? I see none, so we'll move on, or anything from the public on 801? Nothing, I don't see any, so we'll move on to section 802, which is initiative and referendum, and move to subsection A and ask the commission if there's any comments related to subsection A. I don't see anything. Any public comment? I don't see any. So we'll move on to B, 8.02 subsection B, and open that up for discussion to the commission. I don't see any. Any public comment on 8.02 subsection B? I don't see any. Then we'll move on to section 8.02 subsection C and open it up to the commission for comment. I don't see any. Any public comment on subsection C? I see none. Subsection D, open to the commission for comment. I don't see any. Any public comment? I don't see any. We'll move on to subsection E of section 8.02. Open it up to the commission for comment. I see none. Open it to public for comment. I see none. We'll move on to 8.02 subsection F.
I'm sorry,
Frank.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes, sir.
missed, I thought you said D, you said E, right?
I said D, and D is in dog, and then I said E is in Edward.
Okay. Under E?
Yes, sir.
Is there a definition of tax rates? And the reason I ask that is collector in Jackson County, that taxes are determined, property taxes are determined by the assessed value and then also by the levies that are submitted and approved and by the taxing authorities. So
If you're asking, is this intended to go to assessed rates? It is not.
okay.
It is,
It doesn't say assessed values, and, and we've,
Right.
Platte County just passed I think, a ballot measure limiting property tax increases. And I didn't know if because assessments are such a critical part of figuring your,
Yeah.
taxpayers'
and
taxes.
that was done because they were authorized by state statute. And that specific state statute, if I'm tracking with your question, it is not available to Clay County, the one that Platte used.
So you as the county counselor, you don't consider assessed values or petitions or initiative petitions or referendums, the assessed values are out of bounds or not available to have?
I'm saying it, without getting into answering that question, I'm saying that 8.02 sub E, I think, goes to tax rates. I believe those are the setting of levies that the county commission is statutorily obligated to set. And I don't think that an initiative petition would be well taken to try to take that authority away from the county commission.
So let's say they have an initiative petition to say, we don't want tax rates, property tax rates to go up more than 5% in an assessment year.
I think that's governed by state law.
Would that be a legitimate
No.
initiative petition?
I think that's governed by state law.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Because Platte County just passed one, didn't they, that limited,
Yeah, that was, again, because it was authorized specifically by state law, and that statute specifically excludes Clay County from enacting that very thing.
okay. I guess what I'm asking is also, establishing tax rates or also an initiative petition around factors that how you figure tax rates as well, because it could change the tax rate if you limit the assessed value or you limit the taxing authority's ability to set their levies as well. So, again, I'm just bringing that up because I had questions on it, and I kind of deal in that area.
Any other comment on subsection E from the commission? I don't see any from the public. I don't see any. So we'll move on to 8.02 subsection F as in Frank, and open it to the commission, for comment. I don't see any comments from the commission. Any comments from the public on subsection F? I don't see any. All right. So we'll move on. Let's see, the next section, in order for proposition by initiative or referendum petition to be submitted to the voters, the following requirements must be met. And we'll start with subsection A and ask if, or open it to the commission for discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Why 15%? Why not 20, why not 10, why not 30, I don't know.
So we're going to get to B in just a second, though. A, any comments on A? No. Any public comment on A? No. Now we move to B, and I know we'll open it to the commission for comment.
Same question.
Same question.
I mean, I can certainly answer from my perspective is you want it to be a number that is high enough to show legitimacy, but you don't want it to be so high as to be a burden, to be impractical. 2% is, and it's a spectrum. 2%, anybody can put something on at any time, and that is unwieldy. At 50%, nothing ever gets on, and that's closing the door. So, we picked our number on that spectrum based upon what we thought showed significant investment in an issue, and still was doable. Because we don't want, to be honest, and part of our approach was governance by initiative can be unwieldy. And so you don't want multiple things on the ballot by initiative every year. You want, when there needs to be something, there's a mechanism to get on. You don't want to be California, and maybe you don't want to be the state of Missouri with the Constitution, where, every year we're throwing out new initiatives to change our Constitution. So that's the best I can tell you.
Any other comments from the commission on B? Okay. Any from the public? I see none. We'll move on to C and open it to the commission for comment. I don't see any. I'll open it to the public for comment. I don't see any. So now we will move to section 8.03. Sure. Of course, absolutely.
So.
Which section? Okay, yes, sir.
Back to the 15%. It says 15% of the total votes cast for governor of Missouri in that commission district in the last gubernatorial election. So does that mean if it's something that impacts the whole county, it's
It's going to be the whole county.
15%
Of the county.
east and west, or?
Not individual. I would say that's 15% of the total.
Okay. Yeah, the commission district, that phrase was making it unclear to me. But,
Gotcha.
Says in that commission district.
And you probably could remove district from that, because that is more intended, I think, for recall. That language is probably more intended for the recall language in the next section, which could have competing districts. I'm trying to think of a situation where that would be, I don't think it's fine to keep it out, but as a matter of small cleanup, you could take it out too.
But I guess reading the whole thing, you have to have 15% of signatures from each district, I guess, meaning one could achieve 15% and the other district might only get 5% of the signatures.
that's what, yeah.
Okay,
that's
hold
what I
on,
was
okay,
wondering.
let me read, okay.
Says in that commission district.
Okay, all right, okay. Now, reading it again, I think the intent was, you have to have 15% from each side.
From each.
Okay,
That's why it
that
says
makes sense.
district in
Okay.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Which actually I like that better when I think about it more. So you don't have an issue just coming out of one side that is controlling both sides. Yeah. And let me jump in just a little bit on the entirety of Article 8. It's never come up so far in the last 5 years. I would be super reluctant to want to change this one since we don't know if it's working because it's never had to come up. It's not like some of the other things that are coming up every week. We will be back in 5 years to revisit this. So I would at least caution a little bit of restraint on tinkering with the articles that have never even been tested yet. Just, it's my small 2 cents.
Yeah, no proposal from me. It was more of an academic,
Yeah, no, I think it's,
academic
Yeah,
exercise there.
Yeah.
yeah, some of these I'm reading for the first time in a while, so, yeah.
Okay, so comfortable moving on now? Yep, okay, so we're gonna move to section 8.03 on recall and start with subsection A and open it to the commission for comments. I don't see any.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yes, sir.
It says, and throughout here, it says the petitioners. Do the petitioners have to have standing? In other words, do they have to be a resident of the county? Do they have to, have some kind of grievance or some way they've been, you understand standing better than I do, Kevin, as an attorney, but.
What really matters is,
It never defines who the petitioners are.
what really matters is the registered voters have to sign. That's what matters. I mean, that's how it always is.
Defined anywhere in here,
What's that?
who the petitioners are and what their qualifications should
No.
be?
It is not.
Maybe we should.
I mean, I don't know how you would make qualifications. What matters is that do you
You
have
got the
registered voters
signatures.
of Clay County putting their name to that item? I mean, the petitioners don't. I mean, if a Jackson County person wanted to be the petitioner for a Clay County matter, but it got enough votes or signatures, I mean, that's often how it works at the state level.
Wait, do you mind, I just want the question to be heard by everybody. Please. No, that's okay. Appreciate it.
Jay Johnson, County Commissioner, my question was, I thought that the petitioners were the signatures, the people who signed it.
So,
Those are the
I mean,
petitioners.
conceptually, I would think of the petitioners are the people who are kind of organizing the petition movement and then collecting signatures. Now, at that point, they may just kind of melt into the same, which is the signatories become the petitioners. But I don't know that we necessarily want to define who initiates the very beginning of an initiative drive or a recall drive.
Yeah, I always assumed the petitioners were the ones who signed it, which is required to be from the 2 districts
Yes.
in our county. That's what we just
Correct.
went over before.
All the signatures have to be
Yeah.
not just residents, but registered voters.
So no matter who the petitioner is, even if we're saying a petitioner is one person from Jackson County, still all the people that
Yeah.
put their name on there have to be from our county.
Thank you. Okay, any other comment on A from the commission? Did we lose somebody? Where did the North Pole go? All right, before we move on, let's take a 5-minute break.
Did we finish all of recall? Are we starting? We're done with A. A, just A, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I really think we've knocked this out.
No, I don't, just, I'm not trying to be aggravating you either.
No,
Just so that we
I
can-
just, we were asked to review this.
We took 5.
I think so, too. I mean,
Oh my goodness. They're adorable. Oh, all girls.
Four of the 5 girls.
That's awful cute.
I don't have seniors, yeah.
It's adorable.
That's
We're
awesome.
gonna have their hairs fixed. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm getting a little old.
So cute. So I'm wondering.
Ready.
Election thing.
Let's call back to order.
That's Callie.
That's my badge last week.
Okay, moving forward with section 8.03 recall, we'll start with subsection B and open it to the commission for comment.
Hey, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
on B, my question is, why the 15%?
Why the
I think that was
20%?
answered, but in. Why 20%? Why 15? Well,
B's got 20.
Recall's 20.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, is later on it says 20%.
Well, no, it says
Under
20% in
recall.
B.
Yeah, under recall it says 20, I'm sorry.
Right.
Under the previous B, it was 15%, you answered that, but why 20% in this case of the total
Yeah.
votes cast?
Yeah, and I actually feel stronger about this one. I believe in this. Under the first section, when you have an issue, a topic, 15% is a strong number to get, but then you're putting a topic in front of the voters. And the feeling was that the bar should be slightly higher when you're talking about recalling somebody.
I'm talking about somebody's job.
When you're talking about, identifying a specific office holder and pulling them out, that it should be slightly higher than just putting a topic on the ballot. That was the view, because, there are places where when it's low enough, you can win an election with a resounding victory of 60 or 70% and immediately get a recall petition because the recall number is so low. So, right or wrong, that was our thinking, is it should be slightly higher if you're going to pull somebody out of a job.
I don't disagree with that. I think if you're talking about somebody's job, that should be a higher bar to deal with. My question is that high enough, or, that kind of thing? We live in a world that, if you don't agree with me, I'm going to try to get you kicked out of office, and that's not a good thing. So.
I actually think it's a good number. We've already passed over the idea of partisan elections. When they're partisan, either party can easily meet 20%. And as just a punitive measure, you can just recall anybody, even though they've won fair and square for no reason,
Yeah.
just because they're the other party.
And
Now that we're nonpartisan, that's not the
You
issue.
disagree with their vote on a certain policy,
Yeah.
that affects you, so. Okay.
Any
All I have on B.
Okay, any other comments from the commission on B? Any public comment on B? Okay, we'll move on to 8.03 subsection C and open it to the commission for comment.
Mr. Chairman, on C,
Yes, sir.
can a recall election be held in primary? It says at the next election, not next general election.
The next election available for use. So it would be any available election to the county.
So you could have a recall election in a primary
Yes.
election, or in a special election, or in April election?
It would not be contemplated a special election. It would be an election available, which typically means April, August, or November.
When the votes, again, it's a recall election on someone's job, and they can put it on the ballot when fewer people are voting, right?
The next available election, right?
Okay, that's all I have on C.
Any other comment from the commission on C? I see none. Any from the public on C? I see none. Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to Article 9. General provisions, Section 9.01, effect of the Constitution, and open it to the Section 9.01 to the Commission for comment. I see none. I'll open the comments to the public on Section 9.01. I see none. We'll move on to Section 9.02, Constitution Review. Open it to the Commission for comment. I see none. Any from the public on Section 9.02? I see none. We'll move to Section 9.03, Clay County Redistricting and Constitutional Review Commission. Open it to the Commission for comment. I see none. Any from the public?
I do have one
Yes,
small
sir.
one on this one. This is one of the very few things I have a small thought on.
Thank you.
I think we should put in the Constitution the process that was utilized this time, which is, it's not 100% clear that each county commissioner gets to appoint one review commissioner. And I think that works well. I think it would avoid any kind of battles over someone trying to put multiple people on. I think it would be good to maybe put that in the Constitution, that each sitting county commissioner gets to appoint one person who has to obviously otherwise meet all the requirements.
Makes sense to me. What do you guys think?
And again, that's the process we use this time.
Yeah.
Let me understand you, Kevin. I'm sorry. Kevin,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Scott.
I was having trouble hearing you.
Yes.
Joanne and I have the same audiologist, I think. You're saying that it's a good idea for each
County commissioner.
county commissioner to appoint one of us?
Yes, which is what we did this time.
Rather than a presiding commissioner appoint all of
I'd
us.
like to, I think it'd be good to add clarity to that.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay?
I agree as well. Do we have, do we have a consensus on that? North Pole?
Yeah,
Yes? Okay, I didn't ask. Is there any public comment on that topic? I see none. So Kevin, we've got a consensus
Perfect.
on that, please. Okay, we'll move on to section 9.04, qualifications, open to the commission for comment.
May I ask, what's the fourth degree? On C. I guess, are we still on A, Mr. Chairman?
We were, yes. Any comments on A?
I think A and B are pretty clear.
I see none on A. Any from the public on A? I see none from the public. I'll move to B. Any from the commission on B? I see none on B. Any from the public on B? I see none. I'll move to C. Any comment from the commission on C? I
What
think
is
there
the
was a
fourth
question.
degree?
Yes, what is the fourth degree? Kevin, you went to law school, didn't you?
I did, so did you. Tell us.
Hey, it's above my pay grade.
Okay, so start with you. The first degree is parent, child, or spouse. Second degree is grandparent, brother, sister, grandchild, parent-in-law, daughter, son-in-law. Third degree, great-grandparent, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, great-grandchild, and then the in-laws. Fourth degree, great-great-grandparent, great-uncle, first cousin, grandnephew or niece.
I feel like you're reading that and it didn't come off the top of your head.
Yeah, because I wanted to get it right.
What's your source?
What's,
So if I had a first cousin, and we all have those, I think, or a renegade black sheep in the family or whatever. But, okay.
It's a no-go.
so I think
Just wanted to
generally,
know. I just wanted to know.
yes, okay.
Okay.
I don't have that many relatives, so.
Any public comment on C? I see none. We'll move on to D. Open it to the commission for comments. I see none. Any from the public on D? I see none. We'll move to section 9.05, meetings of the review commission, subsection A to begin with, open to the commission for comment. I see none. Any from the public? I see none. We'll move to B and open to the commission for comment. I see none. Any from the public? I see none. We'll move to subsection C, open to the commission for comment.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
So I did have a question here. So, so with point C, it then becomes a 10-year exercise and not a 5-year exercise? Is
Correct.
that the-
Yeah. And beginning at that point, they take up both redistricting and the constitutional review, that one body.
So I'd be interested in your thoughts, since you did this 5
Yep.
years ago. Like, in your mind, is 5 years the right time? And if it is, then what do you think about 10 years? That seems like quite a bit of time.
Well, so here's what I would say. I would say that there are 3 avenues to change this document, in my opinion. One is we're required every 10 years to do this exercise, force us to actually review it. Even if we think things are great, we're forced to do it, and I think that is a good thing, is that somebody every 10 years sits down and looks at this. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is, I think you can do it as an initiative. At any point, a public can say, I want this thing up, I want to change this document. And you go through that process. Then option 3 is, at any point, at any time, the county commission can do it. And I feel like that's enough. I feel like so my one worry, and please don't take this the wrong way, it is not intended for this group, but my one worry about having a group like this meet too often is groups feel like they have to do something. And sometimes you don't have to. And I think 10 years it seems reasonable to me. And that's what I got.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I think this is really important, Kevin. You bring up a good point, but I wonder, and you guys, I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd like to insert the word only between and every. So only every 10 years can you redistrict, which stays within the law. What you just said, Kevin, about you feel like once every 10 years is enough. But what I'm trying to avoid is, one commissioner saying, or, commissioners get the vote to redistrict or reapportion, in the 3rd year or in the 5th year or whenever the election is up, rather than every 10 years. And so I would insert the word only after and before every 10 to say after the decennial census and only every 10 years thereafter, the county commission shall.
Are we at 905C?
Yes.
Is that where the insertion would be?
The first line.
Okay.
Yeah. I just don't want, us redistricting constantly or redistricting to gain an electoral advantage and redistrict the districts and that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
That's what I'm reading too. I'm trying to decide if, so my first thought is that because C is tied to the release of the decennial census, that's the only trigger to start it. So what I'm wondering is there an argument to say we want to do it in the mid, even though we did it a couple years ago, we still can because we're tied.
It says
This
that,
is-
you know, you redistrict basically beginning in 2030 and every 10 years thereafter, you redistrict, right? Basically
Yes.
saying that you based on the census, that census, you
But
redistrict.
Scott, but it's tied to, it has to be done within 60 days of the release of the census. Isn't that the safeguard to keep it from happening every couple years?
Well, you have to do it every 10, but nothing in there limits you to doing it 3 times or 2 times in that 10 years.
Other than it says it has to be done within 60 days of the release of the census.
Does it say, it says shall, doesn't it? Shall appoint
Yes,
a.
it says shall. Shall appoint a review commission within 60 days.
I'm just trying to eliminate,
The situation, I mean, right, I mean, the elephant in the room is, we've seen redistricting mid-cycle in ways we hadn't anticipated now for Congress. I
in
get
numerous
that.
states, at the
Sure.
state level.
Sure.
So I just think it, you know,
Let me look, I feel like this is
Think
pretty good, but
about it.
let me think about that.
yeah, that would be fine. I don't have a. I just, yeah, I don't have a monopoly on these ideas. I just want to limit it to every 10 years because it's expensive.
Right.
Scott ran for city council and they redistricted him outside of the district he wanted to run. And he had to go to sell his house. And
That's your window.
for city council. Scott ran.
Show within, I think it's a limited window. I'll look at it.
Any other comment on that
Every,
from the commission on C?
same thing is only.
Okay. Any comments from the public on C? Yes, sir.
Jay Johnson, Clay County Commission. I just want to clarify, the redistricting, from my understanding, is based on that census. It's based on population, period. So even if any commission wanted to change the redistricting, they can't. It's not like we get to do it based on anything that we want to do. It's the census that dictates what those districts are, period. So every 10 years, that census will change. So mid-year, if we don't get a new census, or between those, mid-decade, if we don't get a new census, we have nothing to base a change on. So there's really, it's not like what Kevin was talking about, the elephant in the room, where you're seeing this redistricting going on. We can't do that. We don't do that at the commission. It's just all 100% based on our population, based on the census.
Thank you. Or any questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think it's based on the census. I mean, I can see someone saying, oh, we've had a lot of growth here. You know, look at the school districts. This is their numbers. It's showing great growth and blah, blah, blah. We need to redistrict. This is the 4th year, I know. We should wait till the 10th year, but we got to redistrict right now to be more reflective of.
Yes, so what I'm hearing you say that you think that the redistricting is not based on the census. That's how you're reading it?
Well, the one every 10 years is, but it doesn't prohibit you to say, you
Oh,
know,
I see
our
what you're
growth
saying.
has been such that we need to
Oh, I see what you're saying. You
redistrict
think there's
now.
a way to sneak in a redistricting in there
Yeah.
for some other,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it just, I've seen it in other states, I've seen it in other counties where they claim there's been a growth, but they're not tied to the census. They have to do one every 10 years according to census. Texas.
I see what you're saying. So the way I interpret it when I read it is it just tied, and I think all of us on the commission think it's tied to the census, but I guess you can get a sneaky one in there who decides to do something different.
There's been some creative readings of some of these recently, that's why.
Maybe I'm deceitful, I don't know. I think that one.
So did we agree on that one, that we're going to let Kevin do some thinking on it and revisit it next time? Or do you want to make,
I want Kevin to think about it,
Okay.
so he loses sleep, that's what I want.
did you hear that, Kevin? No sleeping.
I lose sleep every time before one of these meetings. No, I'll take care of it.
Any other public comment on C? I don't see any. We'll move on to section 9.06, duties of the review commission. Start with subsection A, open to the commission for comment. Scott? No, anyone on the commission? I don't see any.
I think A is perfect.
Okay. Could you say that into the microphone? I don't think anybody believes you said that. Scott says it's perfect, but does the public have any comments on A? I don't see any.
We'll reflect that in the minutes.
You're
Yes.
going to hate me after 9.06. but-
Well, we're going to just skip that then. Okay, B. Subsection B, open to the commission for comment.
Under 905 or 906?
Under the same section we've been
906.
under, 906. 9.06B, any comment? Scott?
I just want to make a general statement. I think now is the time to clean it up, rather than, I know, Kevin, you made the comment, don't make too many changes because it confuses voters.
Okay, that conversation's for next meeting, not for this one.
Okay.
I really believe.
But I think now's the time to clean it up, and from reading the last page, you know, of the language that was used to pass this Constitution.
Okay, you're getting ahead of us again.
I think it can be stated in a way that people will vote for. I don't want to confuse that, but I don't think we should skip and leave bad language in this Constitution, or language that's
So
out
here-
of date now.
We're not going to skip anything. So we're going to go to B right now. I promise we're going to hit every one of these. B, subsection B, any comments from the commission on subsection B? I see none. Any from the public on subsection B? I see none. We'll move on to subsection C, and open it up to the commission for comment. I see none. Open to the public for comment. I see none.
Mr. Chairman, under
Yes.
C.
Yes, sir.
And it's this way in B too, it just says on, at the next election. It doesn't say general election,
It does not.
yeah.
So it will,
It could be a special election, it could be an April election, it could be a primary,
Correct, Kevin?
yes.
Yes.
which.
Not a special.
will
I
be
don't think,
reduced
I don't think
voters,
we would
yeah.
ever set it on a special.
Okay.
It's the next election available to the county.
Okay. I don't know if I asked this or not. Are there public comments on C? I see none. So we'll move on to Article 10, transition provisions. Start with section 10 point.
Oh, I apologize. Let me,
No, you're good.
under C, the next election authorized under 703A of this Constitution. 703A only applies, I believe, to primaries and generals. Those are the only two elections that are available.
Okay.
Not the August, not anything else. I'm sorry, April. Not the April, just August, just,
Because, I mean, part of that is also consideration, the school district elections are typically in April.
in April, that's
also.
right.
And we don't want to mess them up if they have a levy
Sometimes we like messing with
proposal
school
or
districts.
something like that.
But those aren't included because of that, is what you're
That's right.
saying? Okay, thank you for that clarification. So now, getting to Article 10, Section 10.01, Constitution, election, open to commission for comment. I see none. Open to the public for comment. I see none. We'll move on to Section 10.02, question to be submitted to the voters of Clay County. Open to the commission for comment. I see none. Open to the public for comment. I see none. We'll move to Section 10.03, initial county administrator, and open to the commission for comment. I see none. Public? I see none. Section 10.04, offices and officers prior to this Constitution, open to the commission for comment. I see none. Public? I see none. Section 10.05, legal authority and duties prior to the adoption of this Constitution, open to the commission for comment. I see none. Open to the public. I see none. Section 10.06, continuation for existing regulations, contracts, levies, resolutions, ordinances, obligations, and other official conduct. We'll start with subsection A and open it to the commission for comment. I see none. Open to the public for comment. I see none. We'll move on to subsection B and open that to the commission for comment. 10.06 subsection B to the commission for comment. I see none. Open to the public for comment. I see none. Section 10.07 employees continuation. Open to the commission for comment. I see none. Open to the public for comment. I see none. Kevin?
So do we want to go back to, is it Article 4, our last
Are we
thing,
ready?
maybe?
Yeah, any,
Yeah.
okay, we're ready for 4
I think
again?
we're ready for
All right,
4.
then let's move back to section 4.
And I've handed out something for everybody to review. Again, I told you last week I was continuing to work on this idea, and I've had conversations. This has the current language on this sheet, just for, simplicity, as well as a proposed language. I think this would be workable. I am certainly not strongly advocating for it. That's your job. I don't want to get on, step on your toes, but I believe that this is a workable approach, or something similar would be very workable. So I talked, Natalie's not here. That is Natalie's language. She and I talked and communicated over the week, and she is comfortable with what you have in front of you.
So just to be clear, we received a proposed language for this applicable section.
Yep.
And at this point, the person, Natalie, proposed it.
Correct.
You're saying that she's basically withdrawing that for consideration.
Correct.
And today you have provided us a new
Correct.
proposal for all of us to review.
Correct, and that she advocates for this as well.
Could you give me the bullet point changes in here? Or are you more?
So, again, just trying to, really simple. It is that, and focusing primarily on sheriff and prosecutor. So one of the things we struggled with over the last 4 meetings is starting with a base point.
Can we
Okay.
say real quick, and maybe that'll help, so originally, the prosecutor was tied to associate circuit,
Correct?
and the
As was the sheriff,
and
at
the
a different percentage.
Okay, so that's where we started.
Yep. Okay. And so this would change that base point to tying both salaries to the position of circuit judge.
And real quick, the question was asked by Scott.
What percent? Was it
What
75?
percentage was
75.
the sheriff? 75?
Yeah.
On those sheets, those are A and B appoint, the existing current language at the top.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Yeah. So that base point is now, if, under this proposal, that base point is circuit judge, which is in the ballpark of around 180, I believe. Okay, just, I'm sure somebody's going to ask. So that's number one. Then number two is, how does it adjust from there? And again, trying to make it as simple as possible. Once that base is set, this proposed language would then shift the determination of any COLAs or adjustments to the county commission.
And that's beyond their term as well. That doesn't reset it next term or any, doesn't reset each term or anything. That
No,
just
no,
is
it just,
always
it is, we are talking about the.
an initial base,
Yes.
and then everything else is up to the
Yep.
commission.
Then it
basically.
just moves from there based on annual
Okay.
adjustments.
Kevin, were the COLAs under the way it's set to right now, for them to get COLAs, it would just be based on whenever the associate circuit judge got a COLA?
Correct,
right?
correct.
Well, so, when the circuit court judge gets a COLA, does then could they get double COLAs then? Because the
I
commission.
mean, if you went with this,
If we went with this.
Yes.
And the circuit judge got a COLA that year, would the commission then also be able to say, well, we're also gonna give you the county COLA also?
no, the way this is written is, they start with the judge's salary, and then at that point, they are done with any adjustments by the state for the judges. They the only adjustments would come from the county commission.
Okay, so the next year, like in year 2, if the
Yes.
judge's salary went from 180 to 185, because,
Correct.
or whatever the number is with their COLA.
They don't get that.
Okay.
So,
we're
so
saying-
this says on January 1st, 2027, whatever the salary
I
is
gotcha.
of the judges, that's what they will set the base at. Then from that moment on, they are done with the judges, being tied to the judges in any way, and it would be set by the county commission at the point in time each year that the county commission considers salary adjustments
For the whole county.
for the whole county. And they can't exceed the adjustments given to the county's employees.
What happens if, in 5 years, the state says, you know what, the circuit court judges were really too low at this point, we're gonna bump them from 180 to 200?
Yep.
What happens there?
They get the base on January 1st, 2027, and that's it with that.
Gotcha.
And then it, excuse me.
Go ahead, please.
So we set the base once, and then it's the base salary based on January 1st of '27,
Right?
but any other increases come
Moving,
from the county,
prospective increases are by the county commission.
come by the county.
But they cannot exceed what the county does for the whole county?
Correct.
Gotcha.
And that puts them in what range between other counties? We had, I think Will passed out this to compare other counties.
Yeah,
Do
again,
we know
we-
the exact numbers?
What we think it would be, right now, we think Don, tell me, I think it's 180,602 is what we think the circuit judge is right now?
Correct. Yeah, we're looking at 186.92 or something like that, or 62. And then I know Jackson County Sheriff makes about 188. You know, so that's what we were kind of looking at that. And then
But the class ones similar to us are making 130, right?
Platte County's
Platte-
129
Platte County's 129.
Yeah.
as
Now,
of '24.
the other side of that is we're looking at doing 100% with the prosecutor, which would be roughly that 186. So that's what we were looking at. And,
But this is saying to
Before-
put them both at
To be the
100, right?
well, and we were looking at 100% on your sheet, Kevin,
Sure.
matching at 100%. So they would both get the 180. Now, considerations is the sheriff can work a second job if he chooses. The prosecutor said he couldn't. And then I know we talked about the prosecutor has to have his law degree. But what we really didn't focus on too is Will has like one of the largest counties that he has to cover. And he has a jail, and I know Jackson County has 2 jails, Platte County has a jail as well. But those are all considerations.
Is the prosecutor's salary right now considered uncompetitive?
I believe when he was up there, he said he was fine with his
Yeah.
salary when he was up here talking.
Yeah, so I think right now the prosecutor's salary, most statewide, is set tied to the associate circuit judge. Now, because we're, constitutional charter county, we have the ability to untether ourselves from that, and that's what this reflects, but I believe in most counties, it is tied to the associate circuit judge.
And I think the proposal would get him a raise, which if we left it tied into the way it is, the prosecutor wouldn't even get a raise, is my understanding correct?
My question is.
I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, if we left it tied into the associate circuit judge, the prosecutor wouldn't get a raise?
Correct.
Okay. And then at least by moving it to the circuit judge, the prosecutor would get a raise, and then the sheriff would get a substantial raise as well.
The question is that necessary?
Right.
I wonder if it's competitive or not, that's what
What's that?
My question is, are these salaries competitive? And I understand there's some long-term planning as well. You know, you don't have to address it every single year or tie it. But when I looked at what prosecutor was making versus, you know, other prosecutors in the area, it looked like that competitively, our prosecutor in Clay County's salary is pretty competitive. I would disagree with the sheriff. It needs to be raised, and I'm fine with doing it with the the circuit court judge. But I don't think we should just give people raises if they're not uncompetitive already. Does that make sense? Or if we've got a prosecutor that his salary is competitive with other prosecutors in the area, I don't think we're obligated to try to adjust that
Yeah,
up even further.
and I'll try to maybe address some of that. I mean, the idea of competitiveness for elected positions is really a slippery slope. The prosecutor currently, I think I'm right on this, the prosecutor for Clay County, Missouri, currently is paid the same as the prosecutor for Ray County. Okay?
Yeah,
And that is a gross injustice,
I agree.
given the two jobs.
And the type of cases they're
And,
dealing with.
and I can give you, out of 114 counties, I could probably rattle off about 100 to 105 counties where I would say gross injustice, right? The job of prosecutor for Clay County, Missouri is a tremendously difficult and complex job. And the people in Jeff City don't have a great mechanism to acknowledge the difference between Ray County and Franklin County and Clay County. And take your pick, Worth County, right? I mean, there are some counties in the state that have 3 lawyers. One's the associate circuit judge, one's the prosecutor, and one does all the work, does all the, like the private work. And so, you know, we're in a county with 500-600 lawyers? I mean, something like that. And I don't want to get too far here. I suspect he manages the largest law firm in the county. I don't think there's a law firm
No, I think.
that is bigger, has more lawyers under him. And I guarantee you, he is the least compensated managing partner of those comparable, by a large part. So it is a slippery slope when you talk about what's the comparable pay. And obviously, and for anybody that, you know, if you want to buy a house in Richmond on a prosecutor's salary, you can probably buy the nicest house in Richmond. You cannot do that in Liberty or Gladstone or Kansas City or Shoal Creek, or you pick, you know, that's just a function of what it costs to live in this area. So if you ask me, is it competitive, you know, he will tell you all day long, he's paid fairly for what he does. But I think what you get to do is do some minor adjustments that maybe reflect the reality of this world. And we've been blessed to have fantastic prosecutors for generations. And we want that, and we want that to continue. So I would say that on the prosecutor. I don't want to say much more. On the sheriff's side, I think I'm right on this. You know, when we did this 5.5 years ago, we thought we were doing a fantastic thing for the sheriff. And we were giving the sheriff a huge raise. Because it was crazy how little the elected sheriff was paid. It was under $100,000 for managing the largest law enforcement office and agency in this county and one of the largest in this state. Now, what we didn't know is the next year the legislature would actually raise it to 80% of, so I actually think by statute he's lower than almost every sheriff out there right now. So, So again, you're in a position of trying to recognize the complexities of these two jobs, but not be tied to kind of how Jeff City looks at 105 other counties that are all incredibly small compared to Clay County. So I'll leave it at that for now.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
What does the prosecutor make in Clay County right now?
I think it's 164.
It's the associate circuit
It's
salary,
166.
whatever that is.
166?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
something
it's
like
mid-160s.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have
he can buy a house.
164, 662.
That's what I thought, yeah, right in that ballpark.
And I think I asked him that last time, and he said he was around 169, so maybe there was a COLA in there. But I agree with you, Kevin, and, you know, the prosecutor has such a huge load on his plate. And I know from being a police commissioner, I saw the numbers, and it's amazing that they get anything done. And our county, he is fabulous with getting things done and taking care of them. So, you know, we're very blessed to have him. I think he's way underpaid, and I think the sheriff is way underpaid in general law enforcement, because what we forget about is the sheriff is also in charge of a lot of deputy sheriffs and jails and everything else. So I think tying it into the circuit court judge is a great idea with the COLA raises coming from the commissioners.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I just also want to caution, because when you increase someone's salary at the top, you've got under sheriffs and deputy sheriffs wanting a raise as well. And so in the next budget cycle, Jay and Joanne and others, you know, they're going to have to deal with that as well. As far as, you know, you're going to have budget requests from those departments saying, I want to be paid more too.
And then I guess also, you know, we heard public comment, we heard internal comment here back and forth, you know, how much of this should be in the local commission's hands versus how much is tied to the state. And I know we heard public comment saying, hey, you can have pro commissions, you can also have commissions that don't get along with the sheriff. And so I see in this language, it's putting their increases over time back in the hands, or I don't know back, but in the hands of the commission that then can go both ways, right? So I know we heard public comment to that concern. I think we heard internal comment here that that's a concern. Versus it just being tied to the judge, that
Right.
I think we also heard comment that judges are always going to get their money.
No, but I was gonna say, has anybody looked at, like, what are the judges, the last 10 years?
So-
Annually, how many raises have the judges gotten in the way of COLAs and?
So I did look.
Oh, okay.
I did
Look
look it
at
up some time ago. I wrote it in here. So 24 to 25, their increase was 3.2%. But I also looked up to get a bit more historical. Since 2021, it's been an increase of 12.8%.
Annually?
Total, 21 to 25.
combined,
was-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I wanted to know, hey, what did they get for a year? 3.2. And then I said, well, was that the only increase they got for 10 years?
Yeah.
No, it was 12.8, 21 to 25. So
So 4
it's like in that
years, So it's always
4.
about 3-4%?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for checking that, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
I could plug a website here, but I won't. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to share some general
Well, I was,
thoughts on
the
it.
link, when I read it, and it says, increase is not to exceed the average annual salary increase paid to the county's employees. Can that be perceived as, or construed as something different than a COLA? And the reason I say that is, having worked for the county, there were times where I went from, let's just throw numbers here, like $40,000 as assistant prosecutor 1 to, or probably 45 as an assistant prosecutor 1 to 60 as an assistant prosecutor 2. So would that $15,000 raise for that year be averaged in?
I don't think so. That's not how we have done it. And, you know, you're talking about basically a, you know, changing
That is a change in
position.
my salary.
Sure, but that's not the annual COLA or adjustments being made.
Well, that's what I'm
But
wondering.
that's
So
not
should
what
the
it said.
language, right.
I'm with you.
Well, so right now, because we've talked about this, we also have a salary plan, so there are two different components, but those are, you know, that's it. What you're talking about are significant readjustments based upon a change in
Classification.
classification.
But my
And then
salary-
these offices never reclassify. They're at that top level.
But what I'm saying is, when you look at the county, the language says that the raise should not exceed the average annual salary increase paid to the county employees. And so if I've got a $15,000 raise, which I did, why would that not, would that be, like, I guess my question is, wouldn't that be
I wouldn't inc-
considered part of the average?
I certainly understand the question. I wouldn't, my interpretation would be those kind of reclassifications, that's not what we're talking about. We're not,
Should we account for that? Like, could we just say the COLAs, like it's capped by the COLA? Whatever these guys decide is the COLA for the year, that's what the, I guess, up to point is, right?
my only concern is, again, we have a COLA component, we have a salary plan component, and that has a percentage or two as well with it.
What
And
do you mean sorry,
I'm sorry?
what do you mean there's the two components?
Yeah, so every year we do a COLA.
Okay.
Maybe, we have the ability to do a COLA. Often we have done zero COLAs, but
And is that set by the
That
COLAs are
is.
set by the county commission?
that is.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, starting last year, we implemented a salary plan that can do additional adjustments based upon those facts, but they're not reclassifications. So they're essentially like, I'm going to call it like COLA 0.2 or 2.0, maybe is what the IT people would say. So it's not a per se COLA, but it's very much like that. And again, it's a smaller amount,
Who decides that amount?
the county commission.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what we're not talking about is the pot of money for personnel, and how does that change for this department from this year to the next year? And that is because that can be a much bigger number based upon reclassifications,
Yeah.
head count, adding, all of that. That's not what we're talking about. So the way I would have read this is not to include, like what you're talking about would be reclassifications.
I feel like that might be a good idea to put in.
To put a little,
What do y'all-
okay.
Something that just clarifies that. What do you all think? Okay.
I mean, I think that goes back to what Kevin was saying about that being the top position. So say, for instance, if a regular employee goes through our step plan to the very top, which is a 20-year if you're a non-commissioned employee, and then I think it's 14 years if you are. And once you get to that point, you reclassify. That part comes into play. But with the top position, you're not going to reclassify. So I think that would complicate it, and I think that's why they were trying to make the trigger of keeping up with the salary, keeping up with the times as far as
Right.
not getting behind with your COLA, things like that, and setting a base, and then that would create it, because I know what you're getting back.
But I get that they're at the top, I get
Yeah.
that, right? But if you're saying, well, what's the change gonna be? And if it's gonna be the two, I'll just call them two COLAs for purposes of this
Sure.
discussion. If it's gonna be whatever these two COLAs were for the year is the top, but then the average salary would be potentially a different number, because you would look at people like me when I was working there that got a $15,000 raise in 1 year,
Yeah.
and that would average in there. I mean, conceivably, when I read that, that's what it sounds to me like. If
Yeah.
we're gonna say that it's gonna be these two COLAs, why don't we just say it's gonna be these two COLAs?
Well, I think the COLA gives you the max.
Because what it says in here is they can increase it, but it just can't exceed.
Right,
Yeah.
the two
So you're
COLAs.
saying the two COLAs.
Right.
And I'm saying that that's a different number than if you
Yeah.
average the salaries
Yeah.
change for the
Yeah,
annual.
if you just took everyone's changes, whatever
Right.
happened, yeah.
So is there a consensus? I mean, I can come up with some language that can get there, I
Is this
think.
talking
I don't know,
about a
what do you all-
percentage
Well,
or a,
It would be a percentage increase, yeah.
so a percentage increase for the highest paid person certainly generates
A bigger
a
number.
lot more,
Sure.
a bigger number, right?
Sure.
So,
And it goes with a typical employee. If you get to 20 years, you're not going to get anything other than a COLA.
Sure.
So you're not going
Yeah,
to
you maxed out at
you're
whatever
maxed
your
out.
classification is, and then you get your COLAs.
You get your COLA just to keep up with the cost of living and inflation. So you're not going to get another. And what you're referring to is if I am a starting attorney and I start at $30,000 a year and I'm trying to become attorney number 2 or, you know, classified. That's a whole different situation. In that case, you're adding to your education, you're adding to the other things too. That,
Or you just been here long enough.
yeah, or you, well, some will still be here long enough and still won't go beyond that, you know. 'cause-
Yeah, you gotta
yeah.
get the bump, right?
Yeah.
I had to have my supervisor decide that I qualified for, that he wanted to give me the little promotion, you know, so that's what I got. And was grateful for. But I'm just thinking, when I read that, I was,
I mean, I can put some language that specifically references cost of living adjustments and any salary plan currently in place, or something like that.
that might be clear.
I mean, I think that works. Because again, but the key is a couple things. One is the county commission still has discretion. They may, unlike most employees, the county commission can say no COLA.
It would be up to them whether they, yeah, so
Yeah.
they could just say no is what you, okay.
Yeah. And one little thing I thought was good to put in here, I just want to make sure you guys hear it, is I thought the 2 offices should be identical, so that, you know, this year we like the sheriff and we don't like the prosecutor, and next year it's vice versa. As you're playing little games between the 2 offices. You know, if we're recognizing that these are very important, very equivalent offices, let's just treat them that way.
And without me having to reread this, is this saying that both of them get treated? So if they're gonna
Yep.
give both COLAs to the prosecutor, then the sheriff automatically gets it, is that right?
So, yeah, it says,
Yeah, I think you got it.
they shall get and such increase is identical for the prosecuting attorney and sheriff.
Yeah.
I just thought it was important that the 2
Totally
offices be
agree.
treated appropriately, similarly. Because we've had, as you know, we've had times where the commission went to war with the sheriff, or other times we went to war with the prosecutor, and
Yeah,
that's not, you know,
Well-
it's not a good look.
And I think certainly in this case, it really gets the sheriff up to where he should be.
So, but I can do.
I'd like to see, I like
Okay.
the idea, I think it's a great plan, I think it treats both of these people appropriately, but I'd like that, myself would like that language cleaned up a little bit, just so that it's
Okay.
more clear.
Yeah, I like that too.
I can do that.
I mean, I guess I still question I understand what people have been trying to achieve by all the language changes and such. I still come back to having by far the highest paid sheriff for any county in the state that is similar in size, right?
I'm sorry, say it, I apologize.
That we would, even by this, by far, have the sheriff that by far is the highest paid sheriff in the state for counties that are similar size.
I'm not sure that's right. And, I mean, you're going to be close, but I don't believe, however, for sure, he wouldn't even be the highest paid law enforcement officer in the county, or it'd be really close. Law enforcement officer, right?
No, it's not. Jackson County Sheriff would be paid more.
He's not, that county's not even close to ours.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying, but.
But that's what I
I'm
said,
s-
the county
And we're looking at,
that's similar size to us, right?
Yeah.
Jackson County is what, 3X?
yeah,
our
well,
county?
nobody compares to Jackson County. I mean,
Right.
as far as size of
Right.
population.
Right.
But also you look at size of agency. So they got about 300 people, we got about 240. I mean, honestly, Greene County got 600, but that's all they run off of, is just that. So, but it would not be the highest by far. You're probably talking under Jackson County, and we don't have St. Charles or St. Louis County, so you,
Oh, so St. Charles, I'm just looking at this paper that you guys gave us before,
I don't
right?
know who gave you that one out.
This was passed out.
The sheriff brought it, I believe.
Okay.
With the different.
Because it says
salaries.
St. Charles is, on here it says 120. I suspect it's this 131, right, as the calculation. We talked about Boone County was high, but the Supreme Court, I think, struck down what that county was using to pay in that salary. So now I read it's at 131, 729. So when I look in this 130 area, and now we're at 180, it just seems,
Well, so
why is the question I keep coming back to, and
Well,
I can help a
Sorry.
little bit with that. So interestingly, county prosecutor, the size of the office, the work involved is almost always going to be pretty closely tied to population of the county. right? You know, bigger counties need more prosecutors. I mean, and that's countywide. That doesn't change from Greene to St. Louis to Jackson to Clay to Worth, right? It's going to be very close. The amount of work for the prosecutor is very much tied to population. Sheriff is different. Sheriff is tied to two things, typically, the jail, but then the unincorporated area. So there are counties that are enormous counties. St. Charles would be my first example, that are enormous counties by population, but they have almost no unincorporated area. So what that sheriff does is not patrol. I would bet you, and I would bet a lot of money, and I don't know the answer, I would bet you a lot of money that Clay County Sheriff patrols, have more people with carrying guns and badges, driving cars, patrolling than St. Charles. I'll give you another example.
Don't those counties have I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but don't those counties also have a lot more municipalities?
That's why. That's why they have no patrol, is because they have no unincorporated area. They have an incorporated area. And I'll bet money on this one too. What do you think the number one sheriff duty is in St. Louis County? I would bet money it's process serving. It is civil process serving, because they have no unincorporated area, very little, but they have an enormous number of companies that accept process. And that's the only interaction I ever have with them, is the St. Louis, their civil process unit is enormous because of a function of St. Louis County. So when you look at prosecutor, it's really tied to population. When you look at sheriff, you have to look at their jail, civil process, you have to look at their unincorporated area and whether they're doing patrol. That's why Greene County is probably such a large, it's one of the biggest counties with a big unincorporated area. So sheriff is really, you really have to analyze sheriff quite
In Greene
carefully.
County, it says it's 134.
What's that?
134 is what Greene
Yeah.
County says here.
So, and of course, I would also, the cost of living in Springfield is significantly different than in Kansas City, right? But yeah, so sheriff is a harder egg to kind of analyze to me than prosecutor, because sheriff really tremendously varies. Like the numbers of employees between Jackson County Sheriff and Clay County Sheriff are remarkably similar, given the vast difference in population.
Kevin, do we know any idea on calls for service that Clay County sheriffs get?
I don't, off the top of my
No.
head.
I know police department, we got about 100,000 calls a month.
Yeah.
And I think it was Jackson County, I read, had like 8,600 calls a month. But I couldn't find any information on Clay County.
Yeah, I don't have that information. It is
Yeah.
readily
But
accessible,
I
I
know
just
they do
don't
a
have it.
huge area.
Yeah.
I mean, over 400 miles.
So I got to wondering after some of our last discussions, and the fact that we really like the current sheriff that we have and his qualifications and things like that, but the reality is that the qualifications to be sheriff are not at the level that he has, right? The next sheriff could be someone with way lower qualifications. And so then I started to think about, has it ever been considered, or why haven't we ever talked about, like, pay being associated with, like, terms in office, right? Because if you're a newly elected sheriff, and your pay is at one level, well, then 4 years later, you're running again, and the people are deciding if you did a good job or not. And so then maybe that comes with a higher amount of pay, because now there's confidence in what you've done. You've been reelected, right? And so why is it that we haven't heard, or has it been considered before, to tie pay to terms? And so I wrote down an example when I was thinking about this, and also believing that the salary of the sheriff currently is probably below where it should be. I also used the circuit judge instead of the associate circuit judge, and I said, well, what if we considered that the first term sheriff was at 80% of the circuit judge, right? And just doing the math based on now, that would have been like around 145,000, okay? So up from where I think our current sheriff is, around 125. And then for term 2, that 80% went to 90%. So 10% higher at that level is almost 20,000 more. And then at term 3, it's equal to the circuit judge. So because now you have a sheriff that's proven themselves, is getting the training, and it didn't seem like this was a rambling amount of language, because it's just term 1 is this,
Yeah.
term 2 this, term 3 this.
It's a really interesting concept. Here, I'll give you my very first response. My very first response would be, Jay Johnson's a 3-term sheriff, and I'm a nobody running against him. You know one of the things I'm going to run against him on? You elect me and you're going to save money.
Yeah.
I seriously, that's
And I thought through this.
50 grand.
Well, and I thought through this as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The same argument. But the fact is, what Jay Johnson has over new nobody is, well, look,
Yeah.
you've already elected me twice.
Then he has
Don't
to,
you, right?
but you're putting him in the position of defending his salary. And my response is going to be, you're still saving $50,000 with me.
Right.
You
Don't-
have no
still-
experience, right? So this is the balance. And so I just wondered, because that is kind of putting it in the hands of the people. I mean, the reality is, he
Well,
maybe has to justify.
Don't you think, though, if you set the number at the higher number to begin with, you're gonna bring out the candidates that already have? So we're not looking at, we hope you gain, two different ways of looking at it. We hope you gain experience and get better, and we'll pay you more as you do, as opposed to, we want the most qualified candidate to come out and run right now, and I don't want to develop you, I want you to come to me as being ready, and therefore that justifies the higher salary.
So I hear you there, and I thought about that a bit. So even this math puts the Clay County Sheriff as one of the highest paid.
At the 80%.
At the 80%, right? Just based on the current math, the rest, the majority being in this 130.
But do you think you
even
get
at-
better candidates if they know, well, if I leave my existing job that I've been in law enforcement for so long, and I can go get 180 as opposed to 140, I'm gonna be more likely to go run for it if I can get the 180.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm just throwing it out for discussion,
Yeah, maybe,
but, yeah.
maybe.
Can I was going to add, I mean, I think when you become an elected official, let's take away the salary situation. First of all, you're on call 24/7. You're managing our jail system, your top law enforcement agent. The other thing, let's go back to running for office. A typical person running for office, for one, has got to raise some money. You got to do something that most of us don't have to do, that I don't have to worry about. I just got to worry about keeping those 7 happy, along with the commit. So when you start to think about that, do I give money to a random guy who don't know what they're doing, who has not proven to me that they understand what they're doing? We want to still put the premise of them running for office, not based off of them garnering more salary, but based off of them showing to us as a public that you're doing what you need to do as a elected official. So that's a part. This here is just set the base. The base with the cost, with the adjustments, just to try to keep up with cost of living. You're not about to outpace or make them rich by what they're doing, whether it's 180 or whether it was 160. Because when you look at it, we don't even keep up with what the cities are doing. Most cities can give more than what we're getting. I mean, we got police chiefs in cities making 160, and they run in a department of 50 people with no jail. And so when you start to add those things up, you also have to look at where we're at. City, and within our county, you're gonna cost of living is different. So I got where we're getting at, but when we start to look at the salaries and make that our base, we're losing sight of what we're trying to do. We're trying to set a premise to allow us to move forward and set a base and pay. I mean, because even I don't read it as a COLA. We keep saying COLA, but it's not a COLA. It says an agreement that will not go beyond what's set by the.
What I was saying was that the language, the way it reads,
Yeah.
what I think the expectation is that, you can set up to
Yeah.
what the COLA was.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the number that you're saying.
But it doesn't say COLA though.
This version doesn't, and that's what.
Oh, okay.
He's saying it should, or he would like
Okay.
some different language there.
Okay, but regardless, so I got what you're saying. I mean, I think we can get numbers and try to figure that out, but we're not going to really equate those offices to each office. But what we can do is set a base to allow them to be able to run based off of that. If we got hopefully as voters, we can see through someone who's saying, I'm running strictly off of what I'm getting paid. Because eventually it's got to be on us, because we all got to vote on this person and what they've been doing and what they have not been doing. I can tell you the other thing about judges, you got to vote on them too. And half the time people vote on judges not even knowing what they even do. But after that, they get their pay set. I mean, I didn't realize they got paid that much more or whatever they got paid. But that's not, when we go in the voting booth, we're not looking at what they're getting paid. We're looking at what are they doing and what have they done to give me the reassurance that they've done what they need to do in the positions that they're going for. So I think just sticking to that part would help you in navigating this, because ultimately, after this, it's still going to be based off those voters on deciding what that's going to look like. And if we make the pay be part of what we think about when we go into the voter booth, I think it just creates a whole nother mechanism that could cause some more issues on that one. So, yes, I was going to go ahead. You look at you.
Oh, no, no.
To say.
I was just going to say, if you were all done there.
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
I was just going to say, overall, I agree with the framework and what we have here. Kind of language here, I still struggle to kind of determine what the base is. But it's also always a hard thing to do with public safety top officials anyways, because what is that number? About the worst way you could do is just, throw out a number. There's a couple other bad ways to do it.
Yeah.
It's, calls for service, it's the jail, it's all that. It's a very hard thing to quantify at the same time, though. So that's where I'm still struggling a little bit, is like, what is that base? What should that base number be? Everything else I like, and I'd agree with you on clarifying a little bit on what the average annual salary increase means in this. But outside of that, I agree with the rest of the language, so I'll go ahead and throw that out there. It's just figuring out what goes in that one place. Is it circuit judge? Is it circuit judge at 80%? Is it, what is that? I don't know. Other than that, I do like all the framework here. I just got to figure out, I guess, then what I think the base should be.
And we don't have to do it.
One other thing I think what you're struggling with a little bit, James, is how do we distinguish between a good sheriff who is deserving and one that isn't? And please keep in mind, the one way, I thought the only thing we can come up with that makes sense is we're giving discretion to the county commission on those annual adjustments, which to me is a big deal, because they're the only employee, arguably the only two employees in the entire county where there's discretion, or maybe there's four, the other two electeds. Every other, if we do a 2% COLA, everybody gets it, except for the sheriff, except for the prosecutor. They have to have demonstrated that they should get it. And there's discretion here, and I think that's the best I could come up with, and I think that's the one safeguard is an unqualified sheriff or a rogue prosecutor. We can't cut their pay, but we don't have to give them, from a discretionary standpoint, the commission is going to say no. You're not managing your people, you're not managing your budget, you're not doing your job, and we have the discretion.
Ultimately, the end game there is if they're not performing, they're not going to get reelected, and the person that's going to run against them is going to say, that's weird.
That's right.
For the last 4 years, you didn't get one COLA.
Yeah.
The whole county didn't, they specifically did not give this guy or gal the COLA.
So I think that's the one thing that I would say is that there's actual discretion on what they get.
Okay, so, yeah, because I had a follow-up question before you answered that was, so what's really the motivation to make those increases happen here within the county versus just the judge? But it sounds like this is.
That would be the one
saying
reason is
motivation.
this body has discretion. And if I was the prosecutor or the sheriff, I'm not sure I would have wanted that.
Right.
But everybody's fine with it. I mean, I think those two gentlemen, will never come up here and ask you for more money. They are fine with the process. They just want to serve the people. But I think our responsibility is to make sure that they're treated fairly.
And I think it's setting the bar for, like you said, who wants to run against him. And, he's been out there, he's been everywhere, and he's done a great job. But by at least setting the bar up there, if somebody wants to run against him, they can run against him.
Yeah.
But if the people are happy, they're going to continue keeping him in there. So it kind of works itself. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're done with that discussion for the time being, absent you getting us some additional
bit of
language.
yep.
And then we'll take a look at whether we have a consensus at the next setting.
Okay.
Does that sound-
Yeah, I just had one final
Oh,
question.
sorry, I didn't mean
for
to-
clarification.
Absolutely.
So, the next, so this effective date of January 1, 2027, that salary, for example, if the sheriff, the current sheriff doesn't win the next election,
The
then
winner of that election gets that salary.
the one that's effective on 2027, not the current judge salary.
What, on January, as simple as I can say, if this passes on January 1st, 2027, we're going to look up and say, what is the salary of a circuit judge at that moment? So we don't know what it's going to be between now and then, and whatever that number is going to be the salary.
Okay, so when is the next sheriff election? 2029?
It's right now, but
Oh, okay, I thought it
Yeah.
was years.
It'll just be whoever's the sheriff at the time.
Yeah, we're talking about the office of sheriff.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, okay, my question was if, say there's an election in 2029, a person wins that election, their
That salary
base
will be
salary
set.
is what was in 2027, not
Plus
what the
COLA.
judges.
They will
Plus
walk
COLA.
into whatever the salary is that has been, at that moment, it has been set.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
give you a clarification there on that one, James. So if we set their salary January 1st, 2027, and then in the next 2 years, they give them a 5% increase every year, and that, now it's 10% more, so now it's, instead of it's 180, it's 190, just give you an example. Whenever that newest sheriff is elected, they'll get paid the 190,
Wow,
because it's for the office, not for the person.
thanks, that clarifies it for me.
And then from that moment, that sheriff has to prove they are deserving of their COLAs.
Yeah,
Well, actually different because they don't have to give it if they don't want to. They can not give the COLA at all. Well, to any of the employees, but even if the other employees get it, the sheriff and the prosecutor may or may not, depending on the commission. Sorry.
I was fine.
All right, so we're gonna work on language. Did you have any,
Did you want to address anything, Commissioner?
do you want to comment?
You waited.
Thanks for your patience, sir.
Jay Johnson, Clay County Commissioner. I know it's late, I know you guys are tired, I'm sorry, but this is one that I'm very, very passionate about. This is the one that I have the biggest heartache on with this whole Constitution. I will say I appreciate the work that went into this, particularly by Kevin. I like it, I love it, I like it just how it is. I think it's perfect how it is, and I'm hoping that you don't change it at all. But as was mentioned, Kevin said that our prosecutor basically runs the largest law firm in the county. And then I really appreciate what Don had to say about our sheriff. The numbers are, he has 240 employees and 400 prisoners. He keeps locked up in a hotel, the 400 most violent people in our county keeps locked up in a hotel, and he has to babysit them 24/7. That's a big undertaking, and think for a second that if it's 180,000, whatever it is, that's going to be too much money for them, then you need to go on a ride along with the sheriff and figure out and see what his job entails. You need to see what the prosecutor's job entails, because I tell you, none of our employees are overpaid, and this certainly won't make the prosecutor or a sheriff overpaid at all. When it comes to law enforcement in general, I don't know why sheriffs are so underpaid, but comparing apples to apples is very difficult to do, as was pointed out. Those numbers that you're looking at just aren't accurate. If you're going to compare law enforcement in general, our sheriff's about $100,000 under what $100,000 a year under what a chief would make in a similar position. I will tell you, other places I don't like. One of my very good friends, an academy classmate, is a sheriff in LA County. His compensation is $550,000 a year. So you can't compare, and if you want to look at the prosecutor, I got a couple numbers here for the prosecutor. When you try and compare our county to other counties, and first of all, I don't want to be like other counties. I think we need to be Clay County. We're different. We want to be better. But let me give you an example for sort of comparable size. Sharpie County, Nebraska. They have a population of 204,000, less than ours. They pay their prosecutor $201,000. In Lynn County, Iowa, they have about 230,000 people, population. We're actually about 260 now, I think, but they're about 230. They pay their prosecutor $209,000. Arkansas, back in 2022, they were paying $182,000. I don't know what it is now. Illinois, Pennsylvania, $188,000. Jackson County, Kansas, $240,000. Obviously, a little bigger than us. $240,000 a year is what they're paying their prosecutors. So don't think for a second that this is going to cause them to be overpaid. It's not. And I know Anthony knows what happens in that office and what the prosecutor does. That's a big job. And what our county sheriff does. So when I call 911, it's the county sheriff that responds to my house. I live in the county. Same for Joanne Lawson. If you live in the county, matter of fact, our county sheriffs, our deputies, we have more patrol deputies in the field than any other police agency in the entire county. They do more patrols than any other single police agency in the entire county, even more than Kansas City PD does in our county. So it's a big job that they do, and it's there's a couple things I want to talk on that you guys had mentioned. One was, when it comes to COLA. So, by the way, so we have two other elected officials, our assessor and our auditor, who we basically want to treat the sheriff and the prosecutor like we treat the assessor and the auditor. We want to be able to give them their cost of living adjustments, just like we do every employee every year, but we don't have to give it to them, but we have the ability to give it to them. We haven't had the ability to give that to our sheriff or our prosecutor, and that's why the salaries of other people have come up to them or even surpassed them. We also did a salary class and comp study countywide. It's a $250,000 study that we did to show what we already knew, and that is all of our employees across the board are underpaid. All of our employees are underpaid across the board. We're trying to get them up to where they should be in that class and compensation study, but if we ever get our deputy or our undersheriff up to where he should be, he'll be making a lot more than the sheriff's making right now, a lot more than the sheriff's making. The idea that, hey, if we raise their salaries at the top higher, these other people are going to want to come up, well, they already have a system in place, step increases in place, where they're going to be coming up. We're bringing them up anyway, and that's part of the plan. As far as the COLAs, some of the things that we do, and this is to answer Anthony, we don't, it was just COLAs that we gave to our employees. Now we have built in, because of this class and comp study, we have step increases that we've built in. It could be a situation we'll give step increases one year in the future, but maybe not give COLAs. That could happen as well. And if that's the case, and we rewrite this, well, that means we would not be able to give any raises to our prosecutor and our sheriff. So I would prefer that we leave it broad like this. It allows the commission to give those increases if we need to or want to, but we don't have to. In other words, we can give a step increase or a COLA increase to any other employee, but we don't necessarily have to give it to the electeds. And to the point that once you get to a certain number, if you're making 3% off $200,000 versus 3% off $40,000, that's a big difference. And so that gives us the ability to adjust it. You know what? You don't need this 3-5%, whatever it is everybody else is getting. You'd be okay with 1-2%. Kind of keeps it so you don't get this runaway train with the guys at the top. And that's a valid concern, but I think we have to allow the commission to do that kind of stuff, allow the commission to have that, whoever you elect to these positions, to have that kind of authority. But again, I appreciate the comments that were made. I really appreciate it when Don was talking about the sheriffs in his office and what he does. If you don't know what he does, it's incredible, the workload. Having what, and it's not just having employees. It's you have people that you're sending out there with a gun. The training alone, the liability alone that goes with that. You can arrest people, take their liberties away from them, and throw them in jail. The training involved in that. The legal issues involved in that. The liability involved in that. The headache of sleepless nights because you're getting calls all night because of things that are happening in the field. I tell you, it's nobody will. I've been a police chief for many, many years, so I have a glimpse of what he's going through. And so I can tell you, what we're talking about is nowhere near paying him still what I think he's worth. I will say that having that base pay, what that does, that eliminates the issue of a commission coming in like in the past. Although I don't think it would happen now because we have 7. But in the past, when you had a commission of 3 that didn't like the sheriff, there's problems. That base pay just gives them a security that, hey, you know what, no matter what, they could hate me as much as they want, never want to give me a cost of living adjustment or any kind of step increase ever, but at least I know I have this base pay. So I think that kind of gives them some security for that, and that's, I think it's a very fair base pay. But nonetheless, it's, you know, when you compare, so if he has 240 employees, and I think our county administrator has 200 and, if you take the deputies out, what do you have? About the same, about two, yeah. So about the same number of employees. Obviously, he has different things that his employees do, but it kind of gives you an apples-to-apples comparison about the number of employees that they have. And like we said with the prosecutor, that's a huge law firm to manage. And there are so many things that he's doing. And one of the problems I've had, and this is all about public safety, that's why I'm so passionate about this. If we limit, and I was worried about this in the prosecutor's office, if we limit what the prosecutor makes, that limits what we can pay his employees. And if you limit what you pay attorneys coming in, you'll lose good attorneys left and right in the prosecutor's office because they come in as a training ground and then they're gone and they go out and get those other jobs. We need good quality attorneys that will stay at the prosecutor's office because they're getting paid enough to get that. But if you cap the prosecutor himself too low, well, you can only bring these other guys up so much. And I've been pushing to try and get them all up higher because, again, that's all about public safety. You can arrest as many people as you want, but you don't have prosecutors to prosecute them. We're in a world of hurt. So nonetheless, I'm a big fan of this. I think this works well. I talked with both the sheriff and the prosecutor about this. I talked with Kevin and Damon in detail as well as Natalie. I like this. I like how it's written. I think it's solid how it's written, and it gives us enough leeway at the commission level to, if we want to give them that increase, we can, but we don't have to. And it treats them the same as we do the other two electeds that we have in office that we have been giving increases to. With that, any questions for me? I know it's late. I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, comments from the county administrator? If you have anything, I mean, you just did, but if you have anything else.
No, I was actually, we probably just need to, we'll probably follow up to schedule our next meeting. We got to get that on the calendar.
So we're not gonna pick a date now, and you, okay, you follow.
Well, no, we should.
We could talk a
we could
little
look
bit
at
about
a few
scheduling.
dates.
maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we probably ought to take at least a couple weeks right now to give us a chance to work on a few things.
What week would you like us to reconvene? Week of,
Either 2 or 3 weeks out makes sense to me.
so like the week of the
The
4th
27th
or
or the week of the
27th?
4th.
You tell us, whatever you, well, we need to see that, don't we need to see 4, though, the language that you're gonna bring on 4?
Well, so there's going to be, I'm kind of envisioning, so we've gone through the whole thing once. I think our next meeting, I'm envisioning maybe having what I think I'm hearing as far as potential changes to the document that you can see. I think you have to make a
Review that.
decision about, very soon, about what election you want to be on, because that will push our deadline one way or the other. I think we need to leave it open if anybody has any new additions to the document. I mean, so far, we've been essentially just going through the existing document and analyzing it, but if somebody has a great idea, hey, it should have this, and it doesn't have this, let's put that in. So I think that should be on the agenda as well.
30th?
30th?
What's your date? What-
I'm going the 27th through the 4th, April 27th through May.
So the week of the 27th, you're out?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. You're both out that week? Okay. How about the week of the 4th? How does everybody look?
I get back on the 5th.
Okay. Wednesday, the 6th?
I can't do.
What time on
The
the 5th do you
7th?
get back?
I can do the 7th.
Not till that night.
The last meeting for city.
How about the 7th?
7th.
The 7th, we'll have a county commission meeting, but we can meet before that, for sure.
We would have a hard stop at 5:30 again.
Yeah. And do 4 o'clock?
Done.
4 o'clock on the 7th?
4 o'clock on the 7th.
Okay.
Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Is that okay with you? Okay.
So will you be presenting us like a red line document of?
I'm going back and forth on how I want to do that, because I find red lines sometimes to be clunky if it's too big of a document. So I might do that, or I might do just a document with the changes
Applicable sections.
highlighted, so you can look at the two and say, okay, I like this, and, because everybody has the current document already. So let me think about that.
All right, perfect, thank you.
County councilor comments? Kevin?
Was on the ballot, to make the August ballot, we have to be in by May 26th. And then we have a couple weeks later that we could do the November ballot. And that's really a philosophical approach. I'm guessing more people would prefer to be on the November ballot. But just FYI, that's our deadline.
Okay,
And no other comments.
okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
The big iron.
I do to adjourn.
Any seconds?
Second?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank
You didn't
you.
call the nose.
What's that?
Maybe I didn't want to adjourn.
You just want to stay here?
Coney.
You want
I
to
didn't
say
get
no?
enough.